syllables. Today I am going to discuss part 2 of the poem on killing a tree. Now, in part 1, I have already discussed the explanation, detailed explanation, line by line explanation it is done, along with important questions. Now, in part 2, I'll be discussing literary devices, message, central idea, and a few other important questions. So, let's get started. So, first, literary devices. Now, enjambment. I've discussed this in part 1. I have discussed it from the lines of the poem. So here, enjambment means that one sentence rolls on or it continues on to the next sentence without the use of any punctuation mark at the end of the line. It means like this, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, absorbing years of sunlight, air, and water. So there is no punctuation mark about after feeding, then no punctuation mark after absorbing. So this line, the first line here, it is running into the second line. Second line is running into the third line. So after the third line, there is a comma. So this is not running into the next line. So therefore here there is enjambment. Then this line, so hack and chop, but this alone won't do it. Again, this line is running into the next line. It is again enjambment. Then again, another example, the bleeding bark will heal and from close to the ground will rise curled green twigs. So here again very clear enjambment you can see. So throughout the poem in every stanza actually there is this literary device. You can go and check, open the book in front of you and you can find out enjambment. Next is metaphor. So leproside, we've already discussed while I was explaining in detail what is the meaning of leproside. So it is in direct comparison. So uneven and disfigured bark of a tree, it is compared to the unhealthy, discolored and dry skin of the person who is suffering from leprosy. So it is in direct comparison. The comparison words like or as they are not used. So therefore it is metaphor. So the poet is actually saying that the hide or the bark of the tree, it is the skin as the skin of a person in leprosy is. Now again, tree has been personified throughout the poem. So throughout the poem when the poet says feeding upon, so it is personification. So consuming. So all these words that have been used for the tree. So these personify the tree. So personification has been used throughout the poem. Then metaphor, personification and alliteration. It is in this phrase bleeding bark. So this is very interesting. So carefully to understand. Bleeding bark as personification. The wounded bark it is represented as bleeding. So it is human attribute. So who bleeds? Human beings they bleed after a wound. So this attribute it has been transferred to a tree. So it is personification. But it is a metaphor also now how? Indirect comparison. Sap oozing out of the cut inflicted to a tree is compared to the blood oozing out of an injury. So after a cut, so when there is a cut, in case of tree, sap oozes out. But in case of a human beings, blood that oozes out. So that is why the sap, it is said to be blood there. So again, it is metaphor. Then alliteration, bleeding bark. So clear alliteration, burr sound, it is repeating. So it is written like this. You have to underline the sound and then you have to write like burr sound is alliterating or burr sound is repeating. Then again, white and wet. So there, whir sound is alliterating. Now next is imagery. So very clear and prominent images have been used. Now imagery means like when you are reading, you are going through the lines as proper images, they flash in front of your eyes or in your mind you are able to see those images. So that is imagery. Yeah, in a very simple words if I explain, so that is imagery. So if when we read slowly consuming the earth, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, so we can see that how the tree is doing it. So that creates an image in front of us. We can see a tree growing. A tree is rising from the earth and it is growing. It's becoming big. Then out of its leprous height sprouting leaves. So small new leaves they are sprouting out of the bark of the tree. So again our image is created. Then repetition. In stanza 3 we will find repetition pulled out. Pulled out it is repeated and the word out is also repeated. So you can check it out in the poem itself. Open your book and see for this. Pulled out and out. Now, discuss the title of the poem. Is the title apt? So now how to discuss it, how to see whether the title is apt or not. Now, the poem on Killing a Tree by Gieve Patel, it is a satirical poem which describes the process of killing a tree. So it is actually describing or giving the process. Humans who take pride in being the most intelligent, they fail to understand that by destroying forests, they are actually heading towards their doom. So the poet sarcastically tells the readers that a simple jab of knife is not going to kill a tree. It is a much time consuming operation. He then gives the entire technique involving a series of ruthless acts, which according to him is the true nature of man, which will ultimately kill a tree. Then, using sarcasm, he tells how to do it, what man is already good at, that is, destruction of nature. Thus, the title it is quite appropriate, befitting, and significant. Now, the title of the poem it is actually telling that how to do a thing. So here, how to do a thing, actually the poet says that how to do it man already knows. Man is already good at destroying things. So he is using sarcasm here that let me show you how to do it when man already he according to the poet he is best at doing so. So the poet he says he sarcastically tells the readers that a simple jab of knives is not going to do it. It is a time consuming operation to kill a tree. So he gives the entire technique after that in a series of ruthless acts. So, according to him, this ruthlessness that is the true nature of man. So, therefore, the title on killing a tree it is a very apt, befitting, and significant title. So, I hope it is clear. Poet is using sarcasm here. He is using a sarcasm here because he is disturbed and he is displeased that man knows that what he is doing is wrong, but still he continues to do it. So, therefore, the tone of the poem, if a question comes that what is the tone of the poem, so tone of the poem it is satirical, it is poet has used sarcasm here. And what is the mood of the poem? Mood of the poem it is serious mood, it is sad. Once we read the poem, so we feel saddened about the issue, we feel that we know or humans know that what they are doing is wrong, but still they continue to do it. So tone of the poem is sarcastic, whereas the mood of the poem it is sad and serious. Now next question, message. The poem advises us to stop all destructive forces against nature. Man is unable to understand that by destroying trees, he himself is leading to its doom. Trees, that is nature, show resilience and regrow after healing the wounds inflicted on them by man. Nature rebounds itself to face the harsh weather and cruelty of man. It is not easy to destroy it. On a deep thought, it conveys that mere physical and superficial injury cannot destroy nature, that is trees, its roots, that is the soul, it have to be targeted for that. So one message is that we should stop all destructive forces against nature. We should stop cutting trees. Rather, we should begin afforestation. And he also says that trees they show resilience. Resilience means to strike back. So to have that strength, to have that courage to strike back. So trees they regrow themselves. They heal and they regrow even after the wounds that are inflicted on them by man. So nature rebounds. So it is also teaching us, or it is also nature is advising us that we also should do the same. Our soul should be pure. If we are hurt physically or superficial injury, that is should not affect us. Our soul or with our soul, we should fight back. So, superficial or physical destruction, it is not going to destroy nature. So, as long as our soul is intact, we can bounce back after any downfall and rise. So, like nature, we can also bounce back after any downfall or rise. So nature actually has so many things to teach us. Now the central idea of the poem. The poem revolves around the mindless cutting of trees. Now, if you notice the theme, the message, the central idea, they are almost the same because they revolve around the same thing. Only the way how you write it that changes. So the poem revolves around the mindless cutting of trees. It may seem painless to man to hack and chop a tree, but the bleeding bark signifies a painful wound. So man is cruel, and in his cruelty, man is actually hitting the trees hard. And man is doing so because he feels that trees they do not feel any pain. But when the poet writes bleeding bark, so the poet has actually personified and poet has shown that even trees they feel the pain. So it signifies a painful wound. So though the poet chooses not to directly tell man to stop cutting trees, he rather explains the whole procedure to that. So he rather explains the whole procedure, he is doing it sarcastically. He conveys that mere physical, that is outer or superficial assault cannot harm the soul, that is the roots of the tree. So roots of the trees they stay intact. If you are cutting the tree, you are cutting a branch of a tree or you are chopping a part of a tree, the roots they are still intact. So because of that, the trees they rebound, they regrow, they heal themselves. So the poet therefore tells them if you want to kill a tree, then you have to attack the roots. So it will regrow after healing itself. Thus, man should also take care of its soul, that is spirituality. It is very difficult to destroy the soul. So, again, the poet advises that you also, man should also take care of his soul, that is the spiritual side. Man should always not rush after materialism or material things. Now, again, these are the topics that I've already covered. Reported speech, I have covered two parts in reported speech, then dialogue completion, character sketch, tips and tricks. So, I have here told how to write a character sketch and how to write a descriptive paragraph also. And a second on MS Dhoni, the descriptive paragraph is based on a sports person. So, you can go and check and practice all these things. In literature, I have covered the poem Wind, the poem Road Not Taken, and first part of this poem on killing a tree, in which line by line explanation, it is detailed explanation is given along with question answers. And character sketch of Happy Prince it is given, and rest all the chapters and poems I'll be adding on weekly basis. So do subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss anything. And before your final exams, I'm going to cover the syllabus and we'll be doing the revision together. So do subscribe to my channel and stay with me. That's all for today. I hope you liked it, and in case there are any queries, do write them in the comments box. I will try to solve your queries. Thank you very much.